Not every blockbuster can be the Avengers. Some movies aimed high, but instead of soaring, they crashed hard. Let's take a look at some films from the 2010s that aimed for the stars, hoping to start an Avengers-level franchise, and, well, missed by a mile. M. Night Shyamalan had established a reputation for being a one-trick pony by the time After Earth was announced. Will and Jaden Smith delivered one of the worst performances of their careers. The story is set in a post-apocalyptic future where a father and son crash land on an abandoned planet. Will Smith was known as someone who could make a sci-fi movie into a blockbuster hit, but this was no Men in Black or Hancock. Including 2024's remake of The Crow, Rupert Sanders has only 3 films to his name, and all 3 ended up being a financial disappointment. Ghost in the Shell was a live-action remake of the popular anime of the same name. The film faced immediate criticism for the decision to whitewash the lead character and cast Scarlett Johansson. The movie received poor reviews and bombed at the box office, coming in third on its opening weekend behind fellow newcomer The Boss Baby and the 2017 live-action Beauty and the Beast in its third weekend. A rare high-profile live-action fairy tale that was not made by Disney, Joe Wright delivered Pan, a big-budget live-action origin story of Peter Pan. The movie was a box office bomb, grossing just $35.1 million domestically against a $150 million budget. Even with an all-star cast that included Hugh Jackman as Blackbeard, the film was bland and unmemorable and failed to stand out from audiences. Its poor box office performance likely prompted Disney to release its latest Peter Pan live-action film, Peter Pan and Wendy, on streaming as opposed to theaters. The curse of bad video game adaptations was still rampant in 2016, and Assassin's Creed was its next victim. The franchise was at its peak, with rich lore to pull from, and the casting of Michael Fassbender, Marion Cotillard, and Jeremy Irons had fans hopeful. But instead of sticking to the games, 20th Century Studios chose a new character and storyline. The movie bombed with critics and fans, and the studio dumped it during the holiday season, where it got buried by Rogue One, Sing, Passengers, and La La Land. Does anybody remember Brett Ratner? Yeah, he's the guy who directed the Rush Hour trilogy. Hard as it may seem, the guy hasn't directed a feature since 2014, when he delivered what was supposed to be a big hit that ultimately failed. The director partnered with Dwayne Johnson to reinvent the story of Hercules, the mystical hero of legend. The movie falls flat on its promises with an underwhelming, generic action flick where Hercules is merely a muscle for hire. In many ways, Hercules was a precursor to Black Adam, another Dwayne Johnson vehicle that was supposed to launch a franchise. There's one Hollywood has yet to learn regarding remakes. You can never replicate perfection. The work done by Paul Verhoeven in the 1987 version of the film is unparalleled, revolutionary, and irreplaceable. MGM somehow thought it was a good idea to remake a beloved classic. The film spared no expense, as the cast includes Samuel L. Jackson, Gary Oldman, Michael Keaton, and newcomer Joel Kinnaman in the titular role, but the final result has to be one of the most generic sci-fi films ever made. The first unofficial chapter of the Dark Universe is Dracula Untold. Although the movie wasn't hyped as such, it was a blockbuster tentpole based on the somewhat intimate story of Dracula, but told in a grand fashion with tons of VFX visuals. Despite the competent direction of Gary Shore, the underwhelming script is predictable and even boring. Luke Evans was a solid casting choice, but his talents are utterly wasted here, as this vampire has no great depth or complexity. Snow White and the Huntsman aimed to be a dark, dramatic reimagining of the classic tale. Directed by Rupert Sanders, it was clearly trying to cash in on the live-action fairy tale trend sparked by Alice in Wonderland and ride Chris Hemsworth's rising star. But the film ended up as a generic action flick with brief flashes of creativity. While it was a moderate success, it wasn't fondly remembered, making Universal's decision to release a sequel 4 years later a surprise. What was not surprising was how it bombed, grossing $165 million on a $115 million budget. Green Lantern was Warner Brothers and DC's attempt to kickstart their own cinematic universe, but the movie failed so badly that the plan was changed to make Man of Steel the official start of the DCEU. Green Lantern got off on the wrong foot from the beginning, with poor marketing that sold bad VFX and unfunny jokes. In many ways, history has repeated itself with The Flash, another popular Silver Age DC hero who had a movie released in 2023 which has been criticized for its bad CGI and is also a box office bomb. DC and Warner Brothers can't quite catch a break, but here is hoping the future is bright for them in the new James Gunn-helmed DCU.